Hi, my name is Angelo Lopez. I'm a Filipino-American editorial cartoonist based in the San Francisco Bay Area. And today I have the great pleasure to speak to three wonderful friends who also happen to be great cartoonists and stuff. So Ray Billingsley is the cartoonist for Curtis. Gwen Muranaka is the cartoonist for Noodles and Dad's Three Cats. And Barbara Brandon-Croft is the cartoonist for Where I'm Coming From. Today we'll be talking about how we hope, what our hopes for how our cartoons can help our readers during this actually very scary time and stuff. So I want to thank all three of you for coming. Two of you are facing bad weather, and we Californians are actually doing okay. So we want to first we want to apologize for our good weather, but we hope you guys do
Don't
well.
apologize. Just enjoy. Just enjoy.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, let me first start for Ray. First, I want to give you a congratulations and stuff. But this year marks the 38th anniversary of Curtis, right?
Yes.
Am I
Yes.
okay? What are you most proud of
Longevity.
the longevity? Oh, okay.
Longevity. Exactly. For me, it is about longevity because we've always had strips that lasted entire generations. So
Yeah.
I wanted to be the first black guy to do it. You
Oh,
know, despite everything that's been stacked against me, I'm still standing.
yeah.
You know,
Right.
I have not been able to secure a book deal. Any animation deals have fallen flat. You know, they don't think about me in terms of merchandising, but I'm still here.
They,
So
yeah. Yeah.
it's like being a thorn in this side still. I used to go to like the National Cartoonists Society annual meeting because I knew there were some people who didn't want me there.
Oh.
So I
Yeah.
would go there just to needle them, just to make sure they would see me.
But you have a great comic strip. It's very well crafted and well written and stuff. So that's I think weren't you cartoonist of the year? Yeah.
Oh yes, oh yeah, that was I think 2020 now. It's been a few years, but
Oh,
actually, hey, it took a long time,
Yeah.
yeah.
and I had gotten to the point where I didn't think it was going to happen
Oh,
because let's face it, they're sort of like a white boys company, so I didn't really think anything would happen. But see, I'm not looking for the awards and things like that. I just want people to see it and like it. So
oh,
awards and all that, that's secondary. you know, um, I was just proud to get it because I think I was the first in 75 years.
oh,
So, that made it a little special for me. But by the
Absolutely.
time I had to go back to my deadline, that the
oh.
story was over.
That's in the past. Yeah.
Exactly. Then
Yeah.
that's over.
No, okay. Well, for all three of us, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Well, okay. Here, my next question is, actually, it's for all three of you, but first for Barbara. In our previous talks, you mentioned how your father has influenced both your life and your cartoons. How has your mom influenced both your cartoons and your life? And then for Gwen and Ray, Dad's Three Cats and Curtis are both family comic strips, right?
Yeah.
How have your parents and family influenced your life and your work? But first, for Barbara, how has your mom influenced you?
Um, let's see. So I grew up with my mom and my dad. They were married until, death do you part. And so they were married 67 years,
Yeah,
And so we had that um that family unit. And my mom and dad were kind of like, was they weren't independent when they dealt with us. They were always in accord whenever they had to, discipline or whatever they had to do, whatever it was. It's like it was the two of them and it was the kids. That's just the way it was.
yeah,
But
yeah.
that's just the way it was. But it was an interesting dynamic. So of course my dad influenced me visually, and the way he worked and how and I got to see what kind of dedication it takes to do a daily strip. It's,
Yeah.
uh, and most people that I knew didn't know anything about comics, certainly not a daily strip. So I knew it took a lot of work. And my mom was like his cheerleader. So it's like she would just, support him and, yeah, yeah, yeah. She was absolutely his cheerleader. Um, and so my mom, I think when I started, doing the comic strip, she was very proud. I think she was already into that Black cartoonist, yeah, that we were doing something, so that was very sweet. But I was thinking about your question, when you sent it to us,
Yeah.
and one of I have characters, they're Black women characters, and one of the characters is a very fair-skinned Black woman. And my mom was a very fair-skinned Black woman. She was often mistaken for white. And but she went to Howard. She's AKA. She's So I took kind of from her life, that character. So my
Yeah.
character's name is Monica, and she's, hazel eyes. My mom had hazel eyes. Long
Oh,
way to here. My mom had short hair. But um, it was that idea of this person who could pass for white,
yeah.
and some of her family did, could pass for white, but didn't, and was like, that character Monica is like the blackest, most one of the most more militant characters I have. So
Oh,
it's just I kind of stole that from my mom. She grew up in
oh,
segregated DC. I was like, she had that. She was in accord with my dad as far as his politics and his way of looking at life and racial injustice in this country. And they took us down for the March on Washington. I was
oh, wow.
4. They left
Yeah.
me at grandparents. But, I remember going down to DC, to be at the March on Washington. So they were very politically minded. And
Yeah.
so that kind of, the two of them set that in me. But I think I kind of developed that character of Monica, by taking pieces of my mom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do you have memories of it, or was 4 years old too young?
I remember the car ride down. I can remember because we were, I don't know, it was a Dodge Dart or something, and I had to sit in the middle because I was the youngest. But but I can remember seeing a lot of army cars
Oh,
on the streets, on the Jersey Turnpike. Everybody was headed to DC, and
yeah.
at that time, in my mind, it seemed like everybody in a car that was next to me was going where I was going. I'm like, because
Oh.
that's how self-centered you are as a kid. Like, we're all going to. But but for the march itself, they left us with one of my cousins who
Yeah.
watched us because we were too young. They felt we were too young to actually, you don't know what's going to jump off. But so I guess they didn't want to take, their. I have a sister who was, if I was 4, she was 9, and my brother must have been 6, or. So that's, 3 kids under 10 or under 9.
Yeah.
Um, and you don't know it was, I think that's what their thinking was by not taking us. I often say that I was there, but it was like, I was actually just in the city. I was in DC, but it wasn't exactly at the march. But so that's what I remember from it. Those are my memories.
Hey,
Yeah.
I didn't know you were the baby.
I was a baby.
I had no idea. There's 3 of you.
Oh,
Yes.
And
Yes.
the other 2, are they into art?
My sister is now retired, but I guess you'd call retired. She's a lawyer, and my brother kind of followed in my mom's footsteps and went into education.
Did
And
I meet them? Did I
I
meet them at
you
you
met
conference?
you did in Connecticut, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
oh,
you
Yeah,
sure
we
did.
was doing that show.
Yes,
Oh yeah,
yes.
Angelo, Gwen, let me tell you,
hmm.
Barbara and I have bumped into each other over the years, time after time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
show up to all sorts of shows together. So
yep, yep.
Oh, okay.
So you
we
did
go
it
back a long way.
a long time. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
curious. Is there sort of like a little because there are so few black cartoonists, it's just natural for you guys to get to meet each other a lot, right? Is that
A
Uh,
lot? It's not a lot, right? It's
yeah,
like,
not really.
yeah.
We may cross paths every now. I only mention this with Barbara because we're the ones that always show up.
well,
You know, people like Rob Armstrong and Aaron Magruder and all that, and Stephen Bentley. He's a deacon now, so he doesn't
I've
really
only
come
seen
up.
him. I've only met him one time, and I think it was in Columbus, Ohio.
okay.
But
I see
I
you
think the reason I'm asking is because you're both in the East Coast. I
right.
yeah,
have this image of the East Coast being, not too like Gwen and I are in California, but we've never met each other. We're like
Yeah,
yeah,
hundreds of
We're
miles
hundreds
apart.
of miles away, yes.
Right.
and remember, not only that, we're always busy. You
Mm.
know, and we all know each other, is very busy. If we're not writing or drawing, we're trying to compile something, we're doing something on the business end. None of us have assistants. We don't have any, I mean, we have to shuttle the whole burden ourselves. We have to do everything. So it's
Yeah.
not like you really have that much time. And uh the cartoonist meetings, they're sometimes all around the country.
Yeah.
One state, one year, one state. So we may run into each other that way.
right.
Yeah.
But it's just that, Barbara and I, We just been lucky enough to just keep running into each other. That's
Yes,
all.
it's true.
Oh,
In
that's
different
nice
cities.
though. That's
Yeah.
nice.
We
It's
Yeah.
basically
very nice.
seen each other grow up here. You
Yeah.
know, both been in the industry since heaven knows when.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
What a,
always known
yeah.
her.
Yeah.
Remember, I had hair.
Hey,
First
well,
met.
look at me. I'm
Okay.
yeah.
I'm
So
I'm stubbornly holding on.
yeah,
You know,
my fight has been lost. So no. So for both of you, how have your parents influenced or family influenced you or your strips? Because I mean,
well, you want Gwen to go with that?
oh, either one. Gwen, you want to go first and stuff?
Um,
Dad's three cats.
sure. Yeah. I mean, my dad's three cats really is a kind of a love letter to my dad.
Yeah.
He he was an interesting guy. He grew up, he was born and raised in Southern California. During the war, like so many Japanese Americans, he was incarcerated,
Mm.
spent some of his childhood and at Santa Anita in the horse stalls, was at Rower, Arkansas, concentration camp. Went from there to Chicago. He was in the U.S. Army, and then he came back to L.A. and became a pharmacist. And I think my cartoon was just kind of an attempt to express sort of his gentleness, his kind of quiet sense of humor, his late love of cats, which he never had when we were growing up. He always did not like. I brought a dog home once and he got really mad at me. And so I just thought it was something I think and then I drew it specifically kind of for a Japanese American Hawaiian, um, Hawaiian readership. And so I think there was this appreciation of kind of culture and kind of that gentleness, which I think is part of that Hawaiian culture. And so that was kind of what I did as a tribute to my dad.
Yeah.
Um,
Is
yeah.
the cats part of your
Also,
family too? Do you consider your cats a part of your family now too?
Well, the cats, yeah, the cats have all kind of gone to kitty heaven at this point, but
Okay.
he
say
did love
Gwen.
them very much. Yes.
Gwen, I'm always nosy, just like Barbara. I
Yeah,
always. Do you have siblings?
I do. I do. I have actually my sister passed, but I have two brothers.
Oh, sorry to hear
Yeah.
that.
Oh no, no. Yeah, thank you. Thank
Are
you.
they into the artwork also, or?
They are not just me. You know how it is. I grew
Oh
up
yeah,
first reading Charles Schulz
yeah.
and drawing, and so
Barbara had a family member who backed her. And see, I'm with you. I have two siblings, but they're
Mhm.
not in the art. And
Yeah,
what it did, it sort of makes you feel kind of odd at first because nobody else is doing what you do.
right.
And
I still feel odd.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, well, you're talking to three cartoonists, right? So,
Yeah.
but no, I'm curious. Were you the youngest or the oldest for
I
both
was
of you?
the I was the youngest.
Okay, Gwen.
Also the youngest. Yay.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I
Oh,
was I was the
oh,
only artist in my family, in my among my siblings, but I was the oldest.
Wow.
Mm.
okay. Yeah.
So that's I think it's a little different than being the youngest and stuff.
Was
Well,
there
let me.
pressure then to be the model minority to
Yeah.
become
Oh,
a
well, yeah.
like, oh no, you're
My parents gave up on me and stuff. They they just hoped I survived and stuff. So, but my one brother's an engineer, my other brother works in electronics, and my sister is in biochem and stuff.
Mm.
I
Wow.
actually don't know exactly. They tried to describe their jobs to me, but I didn't understand it and stuff. So I just gave a general. The only thing I know is they earned twice as much as I did. So yeah, yeah,
There was a time, when you used to tell your family you wanted to be an artist, and they actually cried because they knew you would be a burden.
yeah,
They'd have to take care of you. But I know, saying in my case, I was sort of lucky because my mother she was behind me completely.
yeah.
Pops was the one that actually gave me my work ethic. He
Uh,
he taught me how to work hard and basically depend on myself. You know, he put me out there early,
yeah,
so it was a little bit harsh, but I sort of thank him now when I think back that without his kind of pressure, I wouldn't have had the gumption to keep going out and doing these deadlines because they're mind numbing.
Mhm.
Did it influence Curtis? I mean, just your family and your parents, and because I mean, you're
Yeah,
it's a family strip, right? So
pretty much. This is the way it goes. My mother was pretty much the same way Curtis's mother is.
yeah,
Mm.
She's loving, but she doesn't want you to step out of line. And see, that's most black mothers. You say the wrong thing, you get smacked. That's the way it is. Uh,
okay.
in terms of the strip's characters, I was Barry,
Uh,
and I was the cute little innocent one that did the worst things. They would think that I didn't do some things, and I was truly behind it, but I wouldn't say anything. Chris was my older brother, who
yeah.
my older brother always schemed. He was always scheming to get this money or to get this girl or to do this and that, and it always blew up. So I spent a childhood just watching him, screw up at one thing after another, and that's what did Curtis. Uh,
Yeah.
my father, he was somewhat different than Greg, and what I did with Greg was I gave him and Curtis a kind of relationship that I would have really liked. That sort of closeness. That's all. But the barber was a real barber. My barber Gunther, he never remembers Curtis's name, and I had a barber for like 5 years, and every time I came in, he never got my name right. I'm like, wait a minute, man, I've known you for years, and you still forget it. It was Roy, it was Ralph, so things like that translated easily. And Mrs. Nelson was actually my real third grade teacher. And she was the first one that actually saw any talent because I used to draw all the time.
Yeah.
And on one of my report cards, she wrote to my mother that I ought to be encouraged to keep going on. So she was the first one to see it. So I had to put her in the strip. Oh,
Yeah.
she was a big woman too. And being in the third grade, everyone is kind of big. So she was always fixing her glasses and staring at you when you side. So, that translated easily into the strip.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for all three of you, there were aspects of your strips that were tributes to family and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Remember, you draw what you know.
Yeah. Okay.
See, Barbara was the only one that really had a professional to actually look at. I know, I don't know
Oh,
how
my.
Gwen went, but I was flying blind.
Yeah.
Nobody told me what to do. I had to find out trial and error. Um, During my freelancing years, I would accept some jobs and didn't even know how to do it. I had
Uh,
to go back and research it and still beat the deadline and not let them know I didn't know how to do it. But life on a deadline, man. That's
yeah.
Yeah.
the way it was.
Gwen, was that way with you too?
Yeah, yes, definitely. It was just I have a deadline, I have to finish this cartoon and I kind of just learned as I went. And you know how it is, the early stuff is just it's really embarrassing to look at some cartoons that I did very early on. It's like,
I
oh
know
no.
exactly. I know
You know,
exactly.
when they publish them, it's like, oh my gosh, this is awful.
But I was talking to a young cartoonist today, maybe a month or two ago, and her issue is just that there's not many, whereas, you know, with all three of you, you had opportunities to do bad cartoons until you started doing good cartoons, right? And stuff.
Right.
I think for younger cartoonists who want to, like, editorial cartoon is really struggling. There
Well,
aren't just many art there. Is the comic strip healthier than the editorial cartoon, or is it struggling just as badly?
let's see. I can go with it. I think they're both struggling,
Oh, okay,
and
okay.
one reason because a lot of the younger people don't really realize the dedication it took and the struggle it took. We went through hell. And
Uh,
even during the time that we were trying to make it, it was a slim tightrope that we were working. I know we all had to read, we all had to study. I don't know how much of that's being done now. Most of us older ones, we know of our cartoon history, not ours, but people who came before us.
yeah,
I know Barbara's father's work well,
yeah,
and you use things like that as a foundation, and you keep that going. You put another step on it, And I don't know if the younger ones are really doing that. Even editorial art cartoonists, um, they really need to study more. They need to see what could contribute to their own voices
Yeah.
and make themselves better. Yeah, you don't just come right out there and you're just a whiz. You're not like that. All of us had come from somewhere, and you know the old saying about you put in at least 100,000 hours before the public sees it. That part is true. You
Yeah.
know, we couldn't just post it and say I'm a cartoonist. It didn't work that way. You had to fight for that title, and that fight is basically over. And that's why you see a lot of things that are they're all behind what like anime or something like that. It's not
Mm.
really that different a style. You know,
Yeah.
we're not getting the Bill Wattersons anymore. We're not even getting like Don Martin from Mad Magazine.
Magazine. Yeah.
Sort of uniqueness, Arnold Roth, that R.O. Bleckman, they were just so different and they weren't so perfect.
Yeah.
And it looked like that stuff was done by human beings. A lot of
Yeah.
things now look like it's done by computer.
Yeah.
And you know, that's not the greatest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
You,
I can say that because I don't know how to do a computer. So
Same here.
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm still old traditional type. You know, I do my stuff the old fashioned way, but I get such a big kick out of it once I see it. I do no roughs when coming up with this stuff. I just go directly to paper, and I surprise myself sometimes. I'm blessed. I'm thankful. You know, thankful for where I am.
Yeah. Understandable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't take it for granted.
Mm-mm.
And sometimes, and I had written this on Facebook before, almost got me in trouble. I said the amount of egotism I see these days is disturbing, and it really is
Yeah.
for you know for some people who really aren't that good, but yet they tout themselves to be as professional as you know Charles Schulz. It's
Yeah.
just craziness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Barbara, Gwen, do you feel lucky to have been, you know, come from an environment where you know comic tradition and stuff, you know, and when comics were still, you know, with Barbara, you had your father, but you know, you also read Jules Pfeiffer. And
I
for
did.
Gwen, you knew Linda Barry and you knew the Hernandez brothers and stuff and Charles Schulz and stuff. Was that sort of a lucky thing for you? You know history because you lived at a time when comics were still thriving.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, like you said, I mean, I'm watching, I had a role model that I could touch, and
Yeah.
argue with, or, whatever, I had it was right there in my kitchen. I mean, my living room, everywhere.
Yeah.
Um, so I didn't feel like it was lucky at the time. What did I know? I was like, it almost felt like everybody grows up with a dad that's an animator, and people were like, "What's an animator?" I was like, "I don't know, but that's what he does." It's like, but it's just so common to you that it doesn't feel anything. Hindsight, I was extremely lucky,
Yeah.
that, because my dad did Luther for sure, but he also did political cartoons,
Yeah.
editorial cartoons. So, and he would, have them up in the house, and so that kind of thing, I was exposed to it. And I
Yeah.
was a huge Mad Magazine person, so those I was huge. I didn't, I go to these Comic Cons and things. I was like, I don't know Superman or Marvel or, I don't know any of that stuff. It doesn't even
Yeah.
resonate with me at all. And they're like, you're a cartoonist? Like, well, yeah, but it's just not my thing. But so
You know what,
I
Barbara?
always feel odd.
Yeah.
What you're talking about, Barbara, is true. Now, you're not supposed to know the Supermans and the Marvels and things. That's not your niche.
It
I'm the
isn't.
same way. I'm the same way. I
Yeah,
cannot tell who's drawing the Hulk and all that. And mind you, the comic book artists don't know us.
at all. Yeah.
So at one of the Comic Cons, I think it was in New York at Javits Center, I met with one of them and he was saying, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm a syndicated artist." And he sort of looked at me. And I said, "Well, let me put it this way. It's the highest you can get." I said, we're published all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
just have a couple of pages per month or every other month. We're all the time.
Yeah.
So it it we don't know each other. Animators don't know us
Yeah.
unless you know of a person personally. I came up with Tom Gamble, who's one of the producers of The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Wow.
But other than the other artists and all that, I have no idea who they are. And likewise, they probably don't know me either. It's just the way the niches go.
Yeah.
Well, I
We
mean, how
stay,
many of you know editorial cartoonists and stuff?
Right.
yeah,
Maybe Roz, I
My
guess.
dad. That's the other thing is that for me, in answer to your question, it's only in hindsight that I realize how fortunate I was because he
Oh,
was an animator and he was an editorial cartoonist and he was a newspaper cartoonist. I saw his dedication to his art. Well, then he was a painter and a sculptor. He was everything. He was like
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
E-man. He did everything. So even though I don't think as I was growing up, I appreciated it as much as I could have.
yeah.
Um, once
mm,
I started getting older and like he would say to me, "You're going to just keep talking about it, you're going to do it." I was like, "I'm going to do it." Because that's the kind of thing I needed, somebody to just kind of put it to me and I'll be like, "I can prove that," and I started
Yeah,
doing it. But yeah, I
yeah.
I could blab on, but go ahead, go
Oh no,
ahead.
no. Hey
oh
Gwen,
no, let
since your
me
dad. Oh, go.
let me
Oh,
get let
oh,
me
go
get a
ahead.
question in for Barbara and Gwen.
Hmm.
How old were you all when you started? I
Uh,
mean, now don't say I was drawing as a kid, because remember we were all drawing as kids. Uh, when did you actually start to take it serious? Now I know with Barbara, her pops probably said, "Get your behind in here and pick up a pencil and start doing something." That's black. That's black folk. You will. I got three kids, but one of you will follow in me. You know, so it's you. But
Yeah,
I'm always interested to know, just what age were you? You
yeah.
said you
Gwen,
didn't
you said you started 20
appreciate
years ago,
people.
right? 20 years
well,
When
ago.
did,
actually, I started right out of college. I worked as a reporter for Pacific Citizen, which is the civil rights. It's the newspaper of the civil rights group, Japanese American Citizens League. And so I was kind of a cub reporter. And I said, "Hey, I want to draw a cartoon too." And you know how it goes. Editors, they need something to fill their pages, so they just let me do that. So I actually probably started in the early 90s with a kind of a family strip about my family.
well,
And
tell
so,
me, did
mhm.
you know how to draw?
No, no, not at all. Not at all. Um,
Okay.
I just knew I wanted to draw and they let me do this. They had a great editorial cartoonist named Pete Hironaka from Ohio. And so he would be submitting things and he was very encouraging, let me do my little thing. And it was just this small weekly newspaper. It's still going.
Oh, wow.
That kind of they let you make mistakes. They let you do something. I recall, and the odd thing about being a reporter and a cartoonist at the same time is sometimes those things conflict. And there
Mm.
was one day when I wrote a story that they didn't like, and so they were upset. And so I drew a cartoon, and usually it was a family strip, so it was mom, dad, two kids. And so instead of a usual, I put censored over their faces because I felt that the powers that be were not allowing us to report truthfully about the situation. So generally, I tried to stay away from editorializing, trying to keep those two sides separate. But that was kind of my first cartoon experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Mhm.
Barbara, how old were you when you started where I'm
So,
coming from?
that was 1982 or 3.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but I mean, that's when I started trying to do it. I mean, I was writing for publication, Retail News Bureau,
Yeah.
and they had me do illustrations, fashion illustrations, because it was retail news. It was fashion, and I heard about a new Black woman's magazine coming out called Elan, and somehow I think my sister hooked me up with. I had a meeting with Marie Brown, who is this, literary agent now. She's kind of iconic in that world. And I had a meeting with her, and I told her I would write. I would draw. I would, anything you want, I'll do it. And she was like, well, she's like, you're kind of funny and you draw. Can you do a comic strip? That's the first time I was like, bing, a comic strip. I think I could do that. It's like I had seen it done. I was like, I think I could do it. But I had to come up with the idea. So the idea and coming up with the idea started then. I didn't get published until um 89. So
Um,
um there was a long swath in between.
gestation stage.
Yes, yeah, that's what's happening. I had
It's
nobody who wanted it.
development.
Okay,
It's
you
all
know,
development. You have to
Yeah,
develop.
yeah.
okay, yeah. In our previous talk, Gwen and Barbara talked about the history of resistance of both the African American and the Japanese American community. Um, this is a very scary time right now and stuff, and I'm wondering this. Okay, this will be a two-part question. Um, how has this history of resistance helped all three of you during this past year? And how do you want your comics to help your readers during this really scary time? So talk for now, and I'm going to try to figure out how to fix this computer.
You know what? I want to say something about this that is going to sound cynical. I'm telling you that now,
Yeah.
but it is the absolute truth. A lot of people now who are non-black are just finding out what the treatment was to be black. We've been through this ever since we were born. This kind of treatment, the rounding up, the profiling, we've been through this forever. Um, Now that it's happening to non-blacks, they're really shocked at the treatment, but we were used to this. And I know in my strip, there's certain people I never want to mention, only because I don't believe these people are worth my mentioning. But every now and then I do try to put in some sort of realism into it, to really relate to the character. Barbara's a lot more savage than I am when it comes to stuff like that. She says things a lot sharper than I do. But it's only because I basically want to just do my strip and have people leave me alone. You know, I don't always like the controversy. When I was younger, yeah, it was fun all the time. But then I saw that it really wasn't getting me anywhere. So, these are people who just wanted to argue for argument's sake. And some people will never get where you coming from.
Mhm.
They just won't get it because they didn't live it. So, that's the hard part. What we can basically do is try to entertain and enlighten people. And that's only if their minds are open to it. Many times you find, they just have their opinion and that's all they're going to listen to.
Mm.
Yeah. When you
Yeah.
want to, yeah.
Um, I know. I think I appreciate Barbara. I read your cartoon and some of the things there's things that I'm thinking as well. And I do agree that people are now waking up to the fact that this is happening to everybody, people with, with citizenship, without citizenship. And this resonates, I think, for my community, especially because it happened during World War II, and there were so few allies who stood up at the time. I mean, it was kind of a cute family story, but in our family, my uncle was arrested because he was trying to see his then became his wife because she was outside of the exclusion zone and there was they had a curfew going, and so he was put in jail for this. And at the time, we were talking about it when she turned 100 years old, and it's like, this is a very cute thing, but it's not cute when it's happening to your neighbors, to people who are just going about their daily lives. And you kind of, I appreciate that as artists, what you're trying to do is empathize. And whether that's coming from a place of anger or from a place of healing, I think this is one thing that we can do in this moment is try to be there and empathize. And, it's that's where I appreciate having these kind of conversations.
Mhm.
Because, we can't we can't avert our eyes to what's happening, and we have to record what our experiences are. And hopefully we learn from all this when we come out of this dark tunnel that we're in now.
Yeah. I want to say that even though you can't see me, I'm nodding my head at what you're saying. So go ahead, Barbara. I'm still trying to figure out how to use it, get this computer back, but go ahead, Barbara.
Come back to us, Angelo.
Yeah, I can't figure this out. Yeah, go ahead, Barbara. This is a quick interruption.
Okay, yeah. So it is a hard time, and it is pushing me to talk about it. And because I don't have a syndicate now, because I don't have editors now, I feel a little more freewheeling, and I feel like I can bring up all these things and talk about them directly. And I put it out there. I'm like, nobody's telling me I can. I just put it out there. And so I appreciate you guys reading it because it's really coming from my heart. And sometimes I think I'm just angry, and it's coming out of me and I'm angry. It's like, we have been through this, that whole thing about you you knew it was happening over here and you did nothing. And then it
Mhm.
came a little bit closer and you still did nothing. And now
Yep.
it's right here in your face. And now you're starting to do something. But on the flip side of that is that it makes me feel like we can get through it because we're
Yep.
still here. This
Yep.
is generational that they've treated us so ungodly. That's generational. And so I'm like, I think we have the stuff that it takes to keep moving, and I'm not going to let that clown in the White House hold me down. I'm going to keep saying what I'm going to say, and I'm going to keep trying to. Sometimes I think I try to make people kind of laugh at it, like this is kind of funny, like Mr. President, what color is the sky? I need you to tell me because I might be asked, and I can't believe my lying eyes. I'm like, that's kind of funny, but it's also serious, but
Sad.
yeah, and then a lot of times I try to stick in some history just to make sure people know that this is the thing that has gone on forever. And, during my time of at the end of my syndication to now, I worked as a research director, so did fact checking, So now I make sure I know what I'm talking about before I say it. You can't just throw stuff out. And one of the things that my dad would talk about is that he did is his most hard-hitting editorial pieces um, were to let white folks know what we were going through, but also to let Black folks know to better articulate what we're going through. So sometimes you feel this feeling and you're angry, but you can't put it in words. You're not quite
Yeah.
sure where this came from, and it's because it's been coming through us for hundreds of years. It's important to know all the things that came before. And like I said, my hope is that we'll get through it because we have been through the worst,
Yeah.
the worst of all of this. And keep hope alive.
Well, this is the
Right.
blank space talking now. I just want
Yeah.
to say that Barbara, your comic really helped me because there have been various times this year where I got really depressed, and reading your comic helped not necessarily cheer me up, but it got me out of the depression and
It,
stuff.
it, well, I appreciate that's good, but just like Gwen is saying, so if people know, if you have that empathy, if you have that kind of, if you can say something and you know that helping people empathize with you, because you're trying to crystallize it for them,
Yeah.
um, it can be some kind of um, way of getting through, you know, taking the next step forward and hoping it is forward.
Yeah. Hey Ray, hey Barbara. Barbara, sorry I interrupted you and stuff. I'm
No,
not
no,
I'm not very tech.
no, I'm not technical at all. I was like, just tell me what I need to do. I was like,
Yeah, I was getting kind of frustrated and stuff. But so I maybe I should just yeah. But whenever I take these breaks, I rush to the bathroom and then I come back and stuff. So hey Gwen. I'm here. I'm not a blank space anymore. So so thank you. I'll thank all three of you for your patience because I'm not the most technical person and stuff. So, but yeah, Gwen, I was telling Barbara and Ray during my breaks, I rushed to the bathroom and I come back. Yeah, see, I'm drinking this tea because
Yeah.
I think I might be coming down with something. So I occasionally sniffle and stuff, but which for you two who are in the cold, this may seem kind of, but yeah, but just to, but okay. So Barbara, I interrupted you. Did you want to continue? I forgot what you were saying, but
Me
you were
too.
mentioning about how where I'm coming from, it's a way of it's a way of like reassuring your viewers and readers and stuff about these are tough times that we've gone through this before.
Yeah, that these are tough times and that you are not alone. There's other people out there who are feeling what you're feeling, and uh even if it's still sad, it's still affirming that, letting people know that they're not alone, That I mean, I use different characters to have different points of view, mostly. Or sometimes I cheat. I'm like, I have a lot to say. Who can I make the smallest? So that's going to be her voice this time. But usually I try to, like one of the characters, her name is Alicia. She's more hopeful. So, I would use her if it's going to be something that's going to say, we can do this, or I still have hope, or, something like that. But and then, of course, I could use my Monica, who's, the white black one,
Right.
um, who can just put it down, really. And Lakeisha is another one with the dreads. She's hard, if you see her, it's gonna be something that has to do with how awful this nation has been and how they
Yeah,
climb on this, uh, taking the humanity away from people to better themselves. It's like that's they just strip your humanity. I mean, they even when his first go around when they were separating families, I'm like, they did that when with slaves, they just they weren't human. You just can do that. I
yeah,
don't care if they never find each other again. And
Yep.
it so it's frustrating, and you see it. I mean, it's the whole idea that well, I don't know, I could go on, but it's the stripping of humanity, and for them to think that they are special, that fake concept of white supremacy that's made up,
yeah,
and that they're building on that, and that's all we have in the White House. There were white supremacists, and that isn't even the first time. We've had
No,
white
no.
supremacists all in the White House before. So it's
yeah,
like, well, how are we going to get ahead of this?
yeah,
We
You know
have to.
what?
yeah. I'm
Uh-huh.
curious,
Gaining on
Gwen.
what you
Oh,
say, the
go ahead.
scariest thing, the scariest thing of all, what Barbara was just talking about, I'm surprised at how it has shown who people are.
Mm.
All this negative activity and all that, and the people going on with it. It could be your neighbor. It could be the person across the street. It could be the person working in the store. It could be your pastor. What's happened is now they've got the go ahead to be exactly who they were all the time
Yeah.
without any blinders or any filters. And that's really one of the scariest things.
Yeah,
True.
I wanted for Gwen and stuff.
Mm.
I know your cartoons are not overtly political, but
Right.
Barbara's talking about how, and Ray is talking about how, this is dehumanizing, and by
Yes.
by portraying the Japan your father a Japanese American and maybe Japanese American cats, I guess, but also but you're asserting through this gentle strip the humanity of the Japanese American community at a time when so many minorities are being dehumanized, and that in and of itself is a political act, I guess. Is that
Right. I mean, it feels like what's happening on the highest level of government is just erasure of our, you know, the essential nature of our existence, that what we do, what our life history is matters in some way. And so I think whatever we can do to present our authentic selves, we are also Americans. There's not just this one, white Christian nation. It's never been like that. So I think every one of us who can present a different perspective is going to resonate with other people who are here who've lived that. And so I think in my own little way, that's what I try to do. And I think, and it's so interesting because we all come from different histories. And the fact that we're here proves that you can't just get rid of all of us. I mean, you think of the disasters we've had, natural disasters, political upheaval. Our people have come through all of these things and built lives, raised families. And maybe it's just a small act of resistance, just saying that we are here and our lives matter in some way. And you cannot erase that. As much as they're trying to get rid of signage in national parks, get rid of the history that we've all experienced and been taught. We are living examples that you cannot do that.
Right.
Right. Is just the fact that you're surviving an act of resistance, that our communities survive and still speak out, even though we're trying to be silenced. That's a part of the history of resistance of both communities.
Yes.
Okay. Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Now, Ray touched upon something that I want to go on to further and stuff. Now, during the 1950s, cartoonist Herbert Bloch, an editorial cartoonist, and Walt Kelly, a comic strip cartoonist, they were two of the few Americans willing to take on Joe McCarthy during the height of the Red Scare. So Herb Bloch's cartoons were in the editorial section, and they were hard-hitting cartoons. Walt Kelly's comic strip Pogo was in the comic section that had a more family-friendly readership, and it was more gentle and stuff. Now, Ray, you kind of alluded to this, but I'm wondering, for your comics, for all three of you, are your comics more hard-hitting or more gentle? And what are the advantages and disadvantages of either approach?
Let me mention this also. There was a third strip done by a fellow named Al Cap.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And that was Lil Abner, and he did a lot of social commentary also. You just had to read into it. And I find out many times to get a message across, it's not to beat them over the head with it as hard as I can. I've taken some chances with things, and very happy that they've always been accepted. I would get more pushback from the syndicate than I did from the readers. And they would say, Ray, you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do this. I said, look, let's just put it out there. One way to really get that stuff in there is to be right on the cusp of the deadline, and they got to put it right out. So that's one of the ways I used to do that. But then they will find out the public would accept it and not get angry. They would tell me things like, well, Ray, you don't want to get letters. No, I want to get letters. I want to know what people are thinking. I'm not a safe cartoonist. So I still find out that I can get messages across subtly. I figure, and I wish to believe that my audience for Curtis, they're intelligent. And see, that goes the same for Barbara and Gwen. Most of our readers are intelligent, so they can most likely glean what you're talking about, without it being something they want to set you up for trial for. We can talk without really hurting people. We still get the message out there. Oh yeah, no doubt. But it takes a special reader to read it.
Okay.
So was there ever, I'm just curious, was there ever a particular issue that you felt maybe you were kind of on the edge, or that you might get pushback and you...
Oh yeah. Now we all remember when COVID was going around. Nobody spoke on COVID. And I was watching and watching, and I said, look, this is too big a subject for me not to do. So instead of just doing a thing of COVID, like what Angelo has there, Um, what I did
Sorry.
was I incorporated the way COVID was affecting one family. You know, the way they were isolated together and how they got on each other's nerves and things like that. And the story went for weeks, but you know, of course, I put other things in, but it will always come back to that. And I had figured that was a big gamble. I didn't know how it was going to be accepted, but thank goodness, you know, everybody liked it. And then I saw other strips doing things about COVID. So I said all they needed was somebody to push them. You know, it's just like watching penguins on an ice floe, looking in the water. It takes one to jump, and then the rest of them will jump
Like,
also.
that looks like a good
Then
idea.
we
Yeah.
become a nice strong unit. You know, as long as it's one person saying it, then you know people can complain. But when there's a bunch of us doing it,
Yeah,
they have no recourse other than just accept it.
yeah, yeah. So,
But
Yeah.
like I say, there are certain names I will never, I will never say. You know, I might allude to who they are, and you can tell who I'm talking about. I had one reader who told me how to keep my views on politics out of it, and I said, basically, buddy, you need to go on about your business.
yeah,
But you know, I'm going to say what I want to say. If you don't like it, don't tell me you're not going to read it. Just stop reading it because I don't know that you're reading it in the first place.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to rock my boat any. So,
Yeah.
so for Barbara and Gwen, are you, would you consider yourselves more hard hitting or more gentle and stuff?
Um,
you've
oh, Gwen, you go?
been reading Barbara's stuff, haven't you?
Yeah, I know. I
Yeah.
just, yeah,
Well,
I
I,
need
I
these
think
questions to get the conversation going.
I
I actually kind of know the answer, both of you, but I mean, I'm just, but
well,
in terms of like, do you think it's, actually, you kind of answered it already, but how effective do you think a hard hitting versus a gentle kind of comic is, and what are its limitations of either approach and stuff? Like Ray was saying, he knows certain people are not going to read Curtis. He's focused on the readers who will read Curtis and stuff.
right.
Is it the same with you both and stuff, or
I mean, it's in my mind. It's and I like I said, I don't have a syndicate, and I don't have a editor, and I don't have somebody who's saying, okay, you've gone too far, you know.
yeah,
And so I think, and it depends again, I said this too, on the character, who's going to be the most in your face and who's going to be a little lighter about things. Um, I was surprised that the Daily Cartoonist picked up one of my strips and
oh.
described it as gentle but firm. I was like, oh, nice. Gentle but firm sarcasm. And I was like, oh, I kind of like that. So I think I ride that line a lot, you know, of being kind of hard hitting and in your face, and also being a little saying it but not trying to hurt anybody. You know, that's just, you know, me anyway. You know, that's just, I guess I'm just gentle. But yeah.
Yeah, it's the
So
You
same.
know,
Gwen,
I find this easier many times in my own experience. I don't read a lot of the stuff that's written.
Mhm.
You know, so that way my feelings aren't hurt. I don't feel like I've done anything. I just go ahead and own business. I see a lot of stuff that's written. I just don't read it. You know,
yeah,
I have no idea if it's good or bad. And, you know, well, it's not going to change what I do one way or the other either way. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Gwen, do you like
So
your approach? You're gentle and stuff in your
I
approach.
guess so. I mean, I feel like I'm trying to meet my audience where they are, I suppose. And I think I feel like if I can kind of hit that point where they can identify with something that I've written, and sometimes it is political. Did a cartoon about kind of protesting because there was a lot of protesting happening in Little Tokyo. And a lot of that was just recognizing the elders in our community who have kind of spoken out. And then I've been kind of thinking to myself, maybe this is a moment to be more activist, to be more political in what I'm trying to do. But it's also kind of understanding kind of where the medium is that it's being published and what is it that they kind of want. So I'm just kind of been toying with that and kind of in the back of my head what to do. Because I know that the culture, tradition, things that are sort of affirming are also important. And I think it's important to recognize the things that bring us together. And I know that that does resonate. But also it's a political moment, and how do you respond to that?
Yeah.
So,
Is my question kind of it doesn't have to be either or. You can be hard hitting sometimes,
yeah,
gentle
yeah.
sometimes, I guess, and stuff. You know, I was thinking that I was thinking about my question and listening to your answers, and I'm thinking you don't have to be hard hitting all the time. You can be gentle sometimes, depending on the readership that you have,
Mm.
stuff, right? So, okay.
Yeah.
But as an
Exactly.
editorial cartoonist, it's different. I suppose you have to be hard hitting. You have to,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
yeah.
that's one of the issues we have. I think I'm the only editorial cartoonist among our group and stuff. One of the issues we have is, are we preaching to the choir or are we trying to persuade?
Mm.
And we're not sure
Bit of
yet.
both. A little
Yeah,
bit of
yeah,
both.
Yeah,
yeah,
I actually think that we're trying to persuade. I think we're out there in front.
yeah,
A lot of readers that look towards us, they are looking for inspiration. I feel they're looking for inspiration, and we can't let that down. That's
yeah,
why, for one, if something political does come across our mind, it's our duty to put it out there.
yeah,
None of us are drawing Broomhilda or BC or strips like that. Mind you, a lot of strips cannot do commentary because they're not built to. Hey, the Horrible won't be talking about stuff happening now. We have the platform where it's more our duty to do it because we can do it. We're about society. We're about now. We're about people and attitudes. So it's up to us to actually do it and take that chance. It's a problem. I mean, who wouldn't rather do something like Garfield and just talk about a cat who's overweight and stuff? It's good for its place. It's nice and light. It keeps people entertained and off what's going on. But in terms of like myself and Barbara and Gwen, we're doing almost racial topics. We're talking about Japanese American. We're talking about Black women. We're talking about Black families. That automatically makes us different.
Mm.
yeah.
So we've got to keep that difference going. I
Is that
wouldn't
part of our
expect.
responsibility to the community?
Oh,
Absolutely.
sure,
Yeah.
sure, of course.
Okay.
Especially since she's speaking up for women, which
Mhm.
is hard to do unless you're a woman.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You can get those people who try to fake it, but guess what? The readers know if you're faking
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, she's being true to herself, her race, and the women. So that's a trifecta. Perfect.
Okay. Yeah. I'm curious. Since you three are comic strip cartoonists, you all have a appealing cast of characters. Does the fact that your readers have an emotional attachment to your characters help you when you do want to convey a message in your cartoons? Since your readers have an emotional buy-in to your characters, they like your characters and stuff. Does that help and stuff, or
Well,
Um,
one of the
go ahead.
ladies.
Go ahead, Ray.
maybe not?
Oh no, no, no. I was saying, go ahead, Barbara. Go ahead. You a Gwen.
Okay, okay. I want to talk about my girls. I call them my girls, but
Yeah,
um, it's funny because I did it so long ago, and it was a weekly, so it didn't give people a chance to really. But once they started catching on to who's who and what's what and what to expect from whom and all that kind of thing, it's kind of cool. And I find now it makes me laugh a little. Like I'll put it on Instagram and I'll put it on Facebook, and some people respond sometimes as if they're talking to her, which is hilarious to me. That's like that's that somebody, when you brought up COVID and man, the whole thing about wearing masks and all that, and I did a thing about you know, why it was necessary to wear a mask, this, that, and you need to put on a mask. And oh, she's just saying, well, I'm going to wear a mask, and then she says, you're welcome. And somebody wrote me back, but they didn't do it right on that Facebook, right there in that thing. They email, what do you call it? Instant messaged me or
Oh, yeah.
DM me or whatever the heck. And
Yeah.
she went to a long thing about how I was wrong and that people, don't need to wear masks and this and that. I was like, wow, that's deep. She's talking to this character like it's an actual person. And so I was like, well, that is one of my characters, right? And that's her feeling. I appreciate you responding here and not on a thing because I don't want to go through this back and forth with you.
Yeah.
But, there's a broad spectrum of how people think. I'm portraying that line of thought. I happen to agree with her, but she's a different character. And
Yes.
and they kind of shut it down. But
Is that an example though of how your reader has a relationship with your character?
I think so. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh yeah. Actually, I know exactly what she's talking about. I've had people who will write into Curtis or the Chutney. I actually have to remind them. I said, this is a comic strip. It's not exactly my attitude about things. I'm writing for a character.
yeah.
Does that make you proud though?
This is
All
what
three
the
of you,
character.
that your cartoon is good enough that your readers sometimes think they're real.
Oh yeah.
Does that make sense?
It's a great compliment. Only
Yeah.
problem
It's
is,
funny.
yeah, but you know what? You don't want them to get to the point where they think they could tell you what you should do.
What you're gonna write. Yeah, yeah.
I've had people say, well, Curtis doesn't do that. And I'm like, what? Wait a minute. I'm the one writing this. Of course I know the character. So it does come as a compliment, but it could also be problems too. I like that people resonate so well with it,
Yeah.
but sometimes it can go a little bit far.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Gwen, how about you? Do you get, does your dad and three cats, and or
Um,
is there that same sort of relationship or?
I think I don't know that I have done the cartoon with enough frequency.
Uh,
It's every day. It's not so that people feel that sort of connection. Although everyone seems to think that I have a lot of cats and that I love cats. That's one thing that seems to happen. And I often hear people say they really enjoy my cartoons. So that's always nice to hear.
yeah.
Absolutely.
When you were doing your books and stuff,
Mhm.
you were doing your book talks, was that
Yes.
when you met your fans and stuff? Or?
Yeah, it was nice to kind of talk to folks and share and I think what surprised me a little bit because I never thought that I was drawing a cartoon for children was how many said, "Oh, my kids really enjoy this," and they kind of go through it and flip through this book, and then they enjoy seeing the pictures and kind of maybe reading a little bit about some of these experiences. So that was kind of nice to hear. It's like, oh, I never thought of myself as like, I think as a cartoonist, you just think of yourself as a cartoonist, not necessarily drawing for children or something. And because I think if you were doing that, it'd be a little bit different than what you would do.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. So you guys are different than me. I'm an editorial cartoonist. I don't have a reoccurring cast of characters and stuff. So I always think it's an advantage for you three because nobody has an emotional attachment to my cartoons.
No,
So,
but your drawing style is its own character to me.
Yeah.
Your drawing
oh,
style and your point of view. I think you have a following, a character in itself in your style.
yeah. Yeah, I'm curious. How do you find, I don't really get much. I'm always, my readership is more of a dream. I don't know how much of it is an actual reality and stuff. Like with you three and stuff, you get actual, what I enjoy about listening to you right now is you actually get reactions. You know,
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah.
yeah, because a lot of times you're drawing in the drawing board, you're all alone. It's nice to get that reaction. As an editorial cartoonist, I think when I was in the newspaper, I think my editor shielded me because I never really got that much reaction. So I'm always I hope people like me. I hope there's somebody that agrees with me somewhere and stuff. But it seems like with you, part of the wonderful experience of being a cartoonist is just seeing how your creations touch people's lives.
That's true.
Does that make sense? Or?
You know what? It's spooky because we're like, say, TV actors or singers or something like that. We're all dealing with an unseen audience.
Yeah, that's what I
We
mean.
don't
Yeah.
get it right back. We're putting our stuff out, on deadline weeks in advance. We have no idea how they're going to react. But you hope they react well. But you get to the point where you're just doing this basically for yourself. You're doing this because this is what you like to do.
Yeah.
This is my world. If you want to be part of it, welcome. If not, well, sayonara. Just teasing about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard on all three of us because we dealt with people that we've never met and will never know, and we just hope for a great reaction. But each of us in our own way, we were doing it to satisfy our own feelings about things. That's what it is.
Yeah.
The hard hitting stuff, probably any one of us could do it at any time because growing up the way we all have, we most likely all have very political thoughts. But the thing of it is, we just hold back on some of it because Lord knows I would sure be in a lot more trouble if I really spoke if I really spoke about things I wanted to speak. I'm very political actually, but I really tone it down, and I suppose the other two also are very politically uh, minded, just like you, Angelo. You have to actually jump right into it. I'm surprised you don't have more hate mail that
Yeah.
you talk about because everybody's
I
offended
think
by
if they knew how to contact me, then I probably would. But
everything.
but I think with me and stuff, I think actually I don't know. When I talk to other editorial cartoonists, people seem to find ways of contacting them. So but yeah, I'm kind of glad because there are times in the news I get really depressed and
Yeah.
stuff. Like this past 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
I mentioned that in my emails that this past 2 weeks have gotten me really depressed. Talking to you guys has actually cheered me up and stuff.
Yes, thank you.
Remember what I told you earlier. As Black folk, this is what we've been through all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah, you talk about the authorities shooting someone in cold blood. We've been through that forever. That
yeah,
was normal. That was regular. It's just that now it's happening to other people.
yeah,
It's not just Black people, and now it's whoa, it's so scary. It's always been scary for us.
Yeah.
yeah,
One of us could have a dispute with a neighbor, call the cops, and we wind up getting arrested. And
yeah,
in New York, there used to be a scary thing about people being arrested. They would take you to a place called the pier, and it was along the Hudson River. And the cops would take you there and beat the crap out of you. And then they would take you to the precinct. And, once there, they would say, oh, he resisted arrest and things like that. He had black eyes, missing teeth, and all that. That was regular.
yeah,
Yeah.
So, a lot of this stuff that's going on, it's been recycled. It's been happening for eons. So I remember this all through the 60s and all protesting the Vietnam War. People got beat up, shot. Same thing.
yeah,
So it's just being rehashed again. All we're seeing now is almost like another communist regime coming up where whatever one person does, everybody, just kisses up and make excuses for.
yeah.
That's the scary part of it.
Yeah.
But
Like I
is that
said, what
also
it
the
does,
importance? Yeah, because you're mentioning history and stuff.
yeah,
That's the knowing history and then knowing the history of resistance helps us be hopeful in scary
yeah,
times. And
yeah.
stuff. Okay, well, there. Let me. We have 10 minutes left, so I want one more question. All of you have been doing cartoons for a long time. How long do you want to keep doing your cartoons? And what do you want your legacy to be as cartoonists?
Me?
Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead. Go ahead. We have 9 minutes and 30 seconds to go. Yeah.
Okay, I can leave them 30 seconds. Okay. Uh, no, but, no, but I think basically since I've been doing it so long, I just want to do it as long as I can until that dementia or something falls in. You've read many times about cartoonists found dead at their drawing board and things like that. I'm hoping to go out that way because what I'm about seriously is inspiration. The things that I couldn't get done, maybe the next group could get done. Maybe they could say, well, let me take his work and use it as a foundation and step on it one more. The same way I've done.
Yeah.
I'm standing on the shoulders of great guys. And, I didn't want their legacy to be hurt any. So I did the best I could to keep
Yeah.
that sun shining. And that's the same thing with the legacy. I just want to leave the legacy that I tried. I tried to make a difference. That's
Yeah.
all. Hopefully, once I'm gone, maybe they'll speak about me for 3 months afterwards. Before I'm forgotten. That's really the whole thing. I just want to inspire people.
Mm.
Oh, and get a check.
For sure. Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh,
Um, well, I guess for me, I think I'll continue cartooning as long as I'm alive, I suppose, because I can't imagine not doing it. Maybe it'll just be for myself. I don't know, but like you said, Ray, I mean, you're such an inspiration, and
Oh,
I feel like bringing groups of cartoonists together like this, because we're always kind of sitting by ourselves, hunched over, fighting a deadline. And so, Angela, I'm just so appreciative to you of bringing us together like this, because you realize we are part of a community. And especially as minority artists, it's really kind of lonely out there. And so, just to be part of something like this gives me a lot of inspiration to keep going, until, maybe my hand falls off, something like that. Yeah.
so they'll have to like pull the pen from your.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, I think I will do it as long as I can as well. It's like I can remember my dad, um, he just couldn't help himself. He just kept creating and doing this and doing that. And Parkinson's, which is a hideous,
Yeah.
insidious, disease, and he couldn't hold his hand straight, and he couldn't read his writing, and
Um,
he couldn't draw. And then he tried to figure out how to do things on the computer. Um, he tried many things, but if it had not been for a disease, he would still, well, he died, but he would still be doing it.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
that's
didn't know. I didn't know that happened. I didn't
oh
know he had Parkinson's. No.
yeah,
Mm.
he was diagnosed with Parkinson's. I guess 12 years before it passed, but gradually, he
Mm.
was still doing stuff for Florida Today, and then
Mm.
at some point he was like, okay, I can't do it anymore. I can't meet these deadlines because I can't do it. And then I was like, you know what, I gotta make sure his legacy stays alive. So I, kind of, put a firecracker in my butt. I was like, get out there. If you don't feel comfortable being out there, get out there because you can talk about your dad and you can, make sure his legacy stays alive. And and then, when that clown came in office, I couldn't help myself. I was like, all right, I gotta just do stuff. And then so that's when I started kicking back in, even though I didn't have a syndicate, and even though I didn't have a venue. I just did it first for Facebook, and people said, but Instagram, Anyway, that's how I started growing it. But
Mm.
I don't. I now realize when I go, like I went to the National Cartoonists Society um, convention
Oh, yeah.
last year. Yeah, and I did a presentation, and I took that opportunity to talk about my dad, to talk
Yeah.
about you, Ray, to talk about Jerry, to talk about Maury Turner. It's like this, like you said, it's an old white man's group. Because whenever I would go to those conventions, back in the '90s when I was syndicated, it would just be a sea of white men, old white men. They were old then. But that's what it was there. And they're like, "Oh, you're Barbara." It's like, no, no kidding. You could pull me out. Yes, I am. But but that's so I love that opportunity to present my story, my dad's story, and talk about where we came from, how long he's been doing it, why he was doing it, how it informed how I do it. And but then I also realized that people like, who is she? I was like, oh yeah, I did have a comic strip too. It's like I'm just trying to, now
Right.
now I'm under the thing of trying to keep my own legacy alive too, so I could also keep my dad's legacy alive.
Well,
Uh,
both of your legacies are wonderful and stuff. You have a wonderful legacy in and of itself and stuff.
it,
So,
that's nice. Thank you. It's and so um, I just want I would guess I would want people to know that I just tried to be as authentic as I could.
yeah.
I tried to put out these characters that were authentic and they spoke like I speak, my friends speak, the people around me speak. So these 9 characters are authentic, and it tells a story. And maybe, way down the line, if somebody picks it up to read it, they
Yeah.
can get an idea of what was on our minds back then. And it's like, oh, Black folks were thinking about that. It's like, yeah, we were. That's what you think about that. We're worried about our weight and hair growing off our chin, all these things. That's we're
Yeah.
people too. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's part of maybe all three of your legacies. You're asserting our humanity at a time when people are trying to dehumanize
Mhm.
every group and stuff, and that in of itself is an accomplishment and a great legacy and stuff. So yeah, yeah, yeah. But thank you, Gwen, for. Yeah, I do these talks basically because I'm a nerd. Right. I'm just, I'm a kind of cartoonist nerd, but also because I'm caregiving right now, and it's kind of isolating. And doing these talks helps break me out of my isolation and stuff. So, and like I said, this past 2 weeks, I was depressed. Talking to you three has helped me, at least for this past 2 hours, it's helped me
Yes,
get out of my depression and stuff.
Right.
that's great. That's great.
Yeah.